Like, I'm a pretty like very liberal guy. Grew up with my parents are both immigrants. My parents come from
If
culture.
you don't think I know that.
Yeah, I know you know. I'm
Yeah.
speaking for the audience. The my parents come from an ethnically mixed marriage, so they come from like totally different parts of the world, and they got tons of heat from their families about their marriage. So I grew up like in a real liberal household, and not like annoyingly liberal, but like super liberal, super progressive. But one of the things my parents always raised me with the idea is like, oh, like within reason, like people can have totally different beliefs than you. It's totally cool, and you don't even need to debate them. But you can get into like a dialectic. You can talk about ideas, and nobody has to win or lose, but you can be in this space. Do you know Thomas from Richmond? He used to tour with Converge, little
I don't.
Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy.
I assume he's one of Nate's friends.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he runs with like that whole crew of Richmond guys.
Yeah.
Thomas is like a real old friend of mine, and we're like on different sides politically. And I love him, and he's a good guy. And if I need like life advice or to talk about something, I'll call him up. And in the business world, I don't work with just liberal people. I work with people from all sorts of different perspectives. And I'll work with people who never talk about politics, and I work with people who annoyingly talk about politics. And for me, it's about doing good work and getting there and doing the right things and not cutting people out unnecessarily. Now, of course, the caveat to that is if someone says something like crazy, like objectionable, like totally sexist, racist, homophobic, or whatever, that's a different conversation.
Right. That's not the compromise. That's not a normal compromise. That's an obvious compromise.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is like money can cause people to do that, like to be in those spaces. And I don't want to be like ludicrous to think that doesn't happen. Of course that happens.
Yeah.
But just from my own perspective, something that I think is super important for business people is to really understand the importance of being able to work with all sorts of different kinds of people.
Yeah. I mean, if you close yourself off, you're closing off money.
Totally. Like good business where you could go and do your best piece of work that you've ever had with someone who might be 5 degrees off from you, like from an idealistic point of view. The reason I'm bringing it up is twofold. One, you're just a guy that I've seen be able to walk that pretty easily and smoothly. You are unflappable. I won't tell the story about how we talked about him being unflappable, but it's a good fucking story. You're unflappable. And you're unflappable in a way that I think like Kurt Ballou is also unflappable as well. It's like just an ability to just be with different kinds of people. But the second is, I think in a time politically, it's very tempting right now to like pull on our fences and cut people out if they believe things in a slightly different way. And I think it's like a caustic thing. I think it's like real dangerous. I just want to get your thoughts and not ask you to weigh in on politics, but just from a business perspective, your thoughts on it.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even say as a business thing. Sometimes it's hard to let go as just a person. Like I hired somebody who came and did some work at the house, and they showed up with their entire back window of their truck was the Blue Lives Matter, thin blue line flag, like the whole truck. And I'm just like, well, come on in, Joe.
Yeah.
And so that's when it's like, yeah, I could have said, your truck's a joke. Just, can you get the fuck out of here?
Yeah.
But there's probably a thought process behind that. Could be he could be playing the game so he doesn't get pulled over. I don't know I don't know these things. So unless it's a swastika, we're going to do our business and move on.
Yeah, man. I first of all, that's a very strong example, because if someone pulled up to my house with that, I'd be like, oh God.
Yeah. Oh, it was
terrible.
I had a feeling in the pit of my stomach for sure, but I was like, well, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And he was not a Blue Lives Matter type of person.
Right.
Like for sure an ex-con.
Right.
So I was like, I think he's playing the game a little bit.
Right. Like he's doing a little camouflage.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like it's a real weird thing for me, because like coming from punk and hardcore, growing up in punk and hardcore, the ideas can be so black and white, like good and bad, like especially when we talk about the punk community, it's like, oh, we're like like we're so good, we care about each other, everyone else is bad, and you're like, wait a second, that is not true at all.
Yeah, that's not the thought process. That's not what it should be.
Yeah, it's not the thought, and it's also not real. Like,
yeah,
punk and hardcore has its is a pretty apt reflection of the real world, but just in a smaller space.
In a fishbowl.
Yeah, but like something that I really notice with musicians and people who make a living off like the creative space is like, hey man, if you want to be serious about this, you got to abandon some small thinking where you're like cutting people out of your lives based on a few degrees off of politics. So again, not the extreme examples, but just a few degrees off. So if you think about a studio setting, and the reason I brought up Kurt is like the two of you both are very unflappable. You're just dudes who can be in like a super awkward, weird conversation and not, you don't see, it doesn't seem to bother you. You can handle it. How does that play into the creative process?
I guess, I mean, I think being unflappable comes from there's a little bit of apathy in a way where it's like, I just don't care that if we're not talking about the song or how it's going to go or details of the recording, then it's I just don't care. It's fine. And I do see that in Kurt a little bit too, where it's like, yeah, I don't care what you do at home. We're here to play guitar.
Yeah.